Do you guys remember when I made this? Not long ago, Ozone made a competition where he asked us to write a Fazbear Frights story. And this was mine. I mean, we all did a story called The Music Box, and it had to do with the puppet. But yeah, I mean, just this is my story, I guess. And it ended right here. 13 pages, right? But I decided that I wanted to make a sequel to this because I thought there was some stuff that I left open-ended and stuff I could have done better. Like I did enjoy making the first one, the music box, and I did think I did pretty well, but there were some things that I wasn't too proud of. And this story that I wrote, the sequel to the music box, I think I did much better. And today I'm going to be doing exactly what I did with that one, and I'm going to read through it for you guys. This is probably going to be like 2 or 3 parts because it's kind of long, but yeah, hope you guys enjoy.
Let's join on the bench. Don't care if I make a mess. Let's join on the bench. It's what you say, I become obsessed.
Just like last time, as I go through, I'm obviously going to, like explain certain things just in case they're kind of hard to understand. But yeah, now this is ahead of time. Don't do this, Jack. Darcy's heart pounded. What could she do? Her husband was in front of her, knife in hand, blood soaking it. Darcy looked up at him with a clearly shaken up look. You don't have to do this, Jack, she screamed at her gone rogue husband. Please. Jack looked down at her. He smiled at her. He was so glad to see her suffering. With a feeling of relief, Jack pierced his wife's left side, killing off the last member of his now destroyed family. Now, this is just a dream sequence, okay? But it's actually important, as you'll see very shortly. Dwayne Larson awoke, shocked. Just a nightmare, he thought. Dwayne looked over at the alarm clock resting on his bedside table. It was 9:12 a.m. Oh no! Larson was over an hour late to work. Dwayne shot out of bed, grabbed the clothes on his dresser, quickly brushed his teeth, then grabbed an apple on his way out. He rushed out the door and jumped in his car. Before driving away, he checked his cell phone. As he did that, it rang immediately. He picked it up. Hello? Larson, where are you? Are you coming in today? You were supposed to be here an hour ago. If you're not going to come in for a day, you're supposed to tell me beforehand, understand? Yes, Captain. I just slept in. I guess my alarm didn't go off. The captain sighed. Look, he began. I understand you've been going through a lot. I get that you lost a friend recently, but it has been months, and if you let your guard down, it might get you or other officers killed. The captain was right. Dwayne was in no shape to be working right now. Should have called in before, he thought. You're right. I'm sorry. He sighed again. You know what? You should just stay in today. Are you sure? Dwayne responded. What's the case? There was a long pause before the captain said, Some guy murdered his family, but we have all the evidence we need in order to lock him up. We don't really need you today anyway. Dwayne stayed silent for a second before the realization hit him. Did you say a guy killed his whole family? Yeah, it looks like it was pretty brutal. Dwayne thought for a second. He had a dream about a guy killing his entire family last night. What were the chances of that happening? This couldn't be a coincidence. Dwayne had to investigate. On second thought, I will come in. You sure? Yeah, why not? Dwayne arrived at the scene of the crime. He walked towards Officer Barton, his partner. What do you got? Dwayne asked. The victim's name is Darcy Smith. Darcy Smith? Smith. Keep that in mind because that's going to be important later. Okay. The victim's name is Darcy Smith, Barton informed him. DNA all over the crime scene tells us her husband, Jack Ronald, killed her. Cap said the husband killed the entire family. Are there more victims? Why was this all just like his dream? There was no way this could be just a coincidence. Yeah, Ronald murdered his children in front of their mother as well. Damn. Names? Of the children? Fiona and Anthony. I don't even know if those were the names in my dream. I didn't see everything. Dwayne thought. Should I tell him about the dream? No. Anything else? He said instead. Nah, we got it covered. You can go home if you want to, Barton told him. Dwayne didn't want to leave. He had to investigate. How did his dream predict the future? I need to investigate, he thought. No, I'll stay here. Maybe dig up some more clues. Maybe there's more here than what you found. Be my guest. Just don't overwork yourself. I won't. Thanks. Dwayne entered the dining room. He walked over to the table. Plates were set up as if the family was about to eat dinner before the incident. Knives, forks, and napkins were displayed all around the plates. Candles sat in the middle of the table. Only one was still lit while the rest had already burned out. Wait. Dwayne looked over at the end of the table. Dwayne saw a fork laying on a napkin. There were knives on all the other napkins. Where was this one? Dwayne couldn't find anything else. He entered the living room. This was where the murder of the wife took place, just like in my dream. The floor was covered in blood. The missing knife from the table lay next to a white sheet covering what Dwayne could only assume was the body of Darcy Smith. Propped up on the wall next to the body was a mirror. This mirror looked dirty. Dwayne walked over to it so he could see a proper view of it. When he reached the mirror, he screamed like a little girl when he saw Jack Ronald standing behind him. He's here? I thought he was on the run. Jack backhanded Dwayne across the back of his head. Don't do this, Jack! Dwayne yelled to him. You don't have to do this, Jack. He looked at Jack's hand, which was gripping a bloody knife. Please. Jack started walking towards him. Dwayne braced himself. Jack flipped the knife in the air and cut it upside down. Then he stabbed Dwayne in the heart. Everything went black. Dwayne's eyes shot open. He was lying down back in the dining room. What? How? He stood up and ran back to the living room. The mirror was exactly where he'd seen it in the dream he'd just had. How do I keep seeing the future? And was I also seeing the past? He went back in front of the mirror, and behind him saw Jack Ronald again. He turned around to look behind him, but no one was there. He looked back in the mirror and no longer saw Jack behind him. Was this thing just messing with his head? Dwayne reached out his hand and touched the mirror. Immediately, Dwayne was washed over with pain and... What was he feeling? His vision faded. Dwayne slowly opened his eyes. Where was he? The area he now seemed to be in looked nothing like the one he had seen previously. He was now surrounded by lab tools and strange objects. All these things didn't seem to have even existed yet. It all looked very futuristic. He moved away from the work area he seemed to be standing at and went towards a desk on the other side of the room. He looked down at what seemed to be on it. The same mirror from the crime scene was laying inside a box on his desk. What? Dwayne shook lightly, then backed away from the mirror. He walked back towards the work area he was in before and began looking through the things on the desk. An endoskeleton similar looking to the older ones at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was laying down on the table, but it wasn't a traditional endoskeleton. This one had a weird-looking head. It looked like a doll's head, and there were markings drawn onto it. Next to the endoskeleton was a red battery pack. Next to that was an animatronic dog. Fetch. What is all this stuff? Dwayne wondered. He picked up the battery pack to search around it to see if there was anything weird about it. There didn't seem to be. Suddenly, Dwayne felt pressure on his hand. The battery pack was torn from his hand and pulled into the chest of the endoskeleton. The moment the endoskeleton got its heart, it became more than an endoskeleton. It became an animatronic being of great energy, and it moved. Somehow, Dwayne, out of absolutely nowhere, gained knowledge and a new mindset. Dwayne became a scientist. Dwayne laughed, genuinely laughed, in pure glee. The being of great energy reacted to Dwayne's laugh by turning to look at Dwayne with its black marker eyes. Dwayne kept laughing, and the being reached out to touch its creator. Dwayne held his breath as the metal fingers met his skin. Then, in one crowded instant, three things happened. Dwayne saw the being's battery pack pulse bright red. He suddenly sensed danger and attempted to throw up a mental shield. He began to convulse, grabbing his head to attempt to contain the excruciating pain that annihilated his consciousness. All of a sudden, Dwayne snapped back to reality and screamed louder than he ever had before. Louder than when he broke his arm. Louder than when he got shot in the chest the year before. Okay, so there's quite a bit to unpack here, but here's basically the gist of it. This mirror at the crime scene, that mirror is the same mirror mentioned in the third Stitch Wraith story, where, what's his name? Phineas, he had received a mirror that had watched a man murder his entire family. This is telling the story of that mirror, at least from my interpretation of it, my own idea. This is like my own alternate universe of the Fazbear Frights universe, where some things are similar, some things are different, and I like dictate certain events, like Lonely Freddy, the music box, and this story all happened in 1993. And that date should probably ring some bells for FNAF 1 that will actually come into play later. But yeah, here, the mirror is kind of like the ball pit, where it makes you see into like the memories of somebody else. So you live through somebody else's memories. But this mirror does what the ball pit does and shows you the past, but it also can show you the future, right? Unlike the ball pit, it can show you the future too, and that's basically what it is. He went into the future, and he experienced the event from Stitch Wraith 3, where Phineas had created the Stitch Wraith. And later on, he's going to see something else from 3 years in the future. And yeah, you'll see what that is. So yeah, let's just continue. I'll make it to page 20 for this video, and then we'll call it a video, okay? Dwayne awoke and immediately launched upward. He was still at the crime scene, but Darcy Smith's body was no longer there. "Don't worry, you'll live for now," Jack said. Dwayne looked up at him. Jack held a knife, and there was blood all over his hands. "I'm tired of all your complaining. I do everything for you, and I am sick of it." "What are you talking about?" As Dwayne blinked, Jack in front of him slowly disappeared. Dwayne shook. "What is happening to me?" After a minute of breathing heavily, Dwayne closed his eyes for a few seconds. When he opened them, he saw he was back in the laboratory he was in earlier. He was living through the same event he had lived through earlier, but this time, he wasn't doing the same thing he had already done. This time, he searched more. Dwayne went back to the work area where he sat before. This time, though, he searched the drawers under the desk. Inside one drawer, Dwayne saw a robotics magazine. He opened the next one. This one contained a cell phone that looked way too advanced for 1993. That's basically telling you that the story is in 1993. If this were canon, I'm just gonna say, if this were canon, so much would be confirmed in the story. Okay, yeah, but you'll see what I mean more later on. Yeah, just think of the name Smith. Who does that remind you of? We see the person that it might remind you of a little bit later. I really am seeing the future. He decided to take it with him and try to study it later on. He needed to figure out how advanced it really was. Next, Dwayne moved over to the desk where the mirror lay. Last time, he only focused on the mirror, but this time he wanted to look at the other equipment on the desk. He saw a microscope and a magnifying glass on one end of the table, and on the other end lay a stack of party plates, and an empty Jack in the Box. However, he was still confused about how the mirror was here. He tried to pick it up, but he instantly felt a massive wave of agony and pain. Dwayne opened his eyes to see he was once again in the living room of the crime scene. He quickly stood up. This time, there was nothing around him but Darcy Smith's dead body. At this point, Dwayne realized it would be a good idea to leave and do some background research on Smith and her family. Okay, I'm hoping you guys are liking this so far, and I'm hoping you like the second half, because the second half, I think, is much better than the first half. Okay. Sat at his desk, Dwayne thought about what his next move would be. The case was basically closed at this point, but he couldn't give up on the thought that something more was going on here. Those events he went through were not his own memories. What could they mean? Was it all just a dream? No, it couldn't be. He had predicted the exact case he would get that day in a dream before waking up, and even before hearing anything about the case. This couldn't all just be a dream. He debated about whether he should check out this next lead, but he ultimately decided to. Darcy Smith was not the woman's real name. It was an alias. She also had a cousin named... Did his name really matter? It was just an alias anyway. The important thing was that he used to work at one of the old Freddy Fazbear's pizza locations. Do you guys understand what I'm trying to say yet? Okay, alright. He had to ask... Okay, sorry. Dwayne wasn't able to get a face to go with the man's name, though. He decided to go to Freddy's. He had to ask Afton if he remembered the old employee. Dwayne hadn't been home all day. He needed to go see his family. His wife Kelly and his son Everett. Everett later on becomes Detective Larson from the Stitch Wraith epilogues, but yeah, that's besides the point. Dwayne reached into his pocket and grabbed his phone to call Kelly and let her know he's coming home. When he reached into his pocket, his phone did not feel like the same shape it should have been. He pulled the phone out of his pocket. The phone in his hand was the one from this futuristic dream. How could he have this? This could not be possible. Ignoring what he just noticed, he went on his way home. Okay, now we'll read this page and up to around here. If you guys can see where my mouse is, we'll read up to there. Alright? Okay, so as he steered his car into the driveway, Dwayne couldn't shake the feeling that he was followed home. He opened his door and then looked behind his car. Nothing. He went all the way around his car. Nothing. He shrugged it off as he went inside, but then he forgot to check under the car. We never learn what's under the car, guys. I mean, I know what's under the car, but that's it's basically just Jack, okay? That's all. But yeah, Jack himself doesn't actually appear again, but just yeah, it's Jack under the car. Or at least that's what Dwayne is imagining is under the car. Jack is obviously not physically under the car because Jack is on the run and he himself doesn't know who Dwayne is, obviously. But yeah, anyway. Dwayne walked up the steps and went into his house. He opened the door, but realized this wasn't his house. Everett ran down the stairs and into his father's arms. There are no stairs in my house, he thought. Dad! Everett cheered for his father. Hey, buddy, how's your day? Dwayne lifted his son into the air, still freaked out by his house looking completely different. Was he still just seeing things? Good. I missed you, though. That warmed Dwayne's heart, but it just made him realize how little he was home. He had to make an effort. Wait, Dwayne only left the house what seemed like an hour ago. What time was it? He's wondering this because he realizes it's getting dark. So, yeah. Dwayne gasped as he looked at his watch. It was 7:31 p.m. How long was I at the crime scene? Dwayne shrugged off that thought and decided to focus on his family right now. Kelly walked towards the front door from what seemed to be a kitchen, but of course this was not the kitchen Dwayne knew his house to have. The kitchen was different. Finally, you're home, his wife said to him. Give me a second. Dwayne told his wife and son, but you only just got home. It'll only be a second. Dwayne pulled the future phone out of his pocket and handed it to Everett without thinking much about it. What's this? Everett asked his father. I really don't know, Dwayne thought. Something I found at a crime scene today. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but you can just play around with it for now. See how it works. This wasn't entirely true. Dwayne found the phone when he was at the crime scene, yes, but the phone was not at the crime scene, per se. If it was at a crime scene, isn't it evidence? Dwayne's wife asked him. No, we already know who the killer is. I just think there may be more to investigate. Some of the stuff in that house was a bit weird. He was of course referring to the mirror, but he didn't think he had to tell his family about that. Dwayne walked further into the house and entered the kitchen he didn't recognize. It had all the normal things a kitchen should have: a fridge, freezer, microwave, stove, sink, cabinets, and dishwasher. But one thing immediately stood out for obvious reasons. Standing in the middle of the kitchen was an animatronic chicken. It stood about 5 feet and 9 inches high and was yellow all over. The animatronic chick wore a bib covered in glitter with the words "Let's Eat" plastered onto it. It seemed to be an iteration of the Chica animatronic from Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, but this animatronic was shaped much differently than the one at Freddy's. This Chica wasn't covered in fur, but instead seemed to be made of shiny plastic. Chica's body was slimmer than the one at Freddy's. The Chica at Freddy's could be called obese, but this one was slim in an hourglass shape. It could almost be seen as attractive if it wasn't a horrific-looking animatronic bird. There you go, guys. That's my opinion on the design of Toy Chica. Thank you for watching. Anyway, why is that here? Dwayne asked his wife, confused. What do you mean? It's been here for the last week. Dwayne whirled around and looked at his wife. What? You promised Everett that you would paint it today, remember? Dwayne gained a migraine quickly. He grew tired in seconds. After a long pause, Dwayne finally said, "Right. Are you okay?" asked Kelly. "Yeah, I'm just tired," Dwayne said. "Hey, buddy, is it okay if we paint it tomorrow?" "Dwayne, you're going to be at work all day, won't you?" Kelly said. "Nah, I can take one day off." "That's okay with me, Dad," Everett said enthusiastically. "In the meantime, I can play around with this cool phone thing." "Okay. I know it's early, but I think I'm going to go to bed now." "That's fine. We'll see you tomorrow," Kelsey said before she kissed Dwayne goodnight. So that's everything I'm gonna go through for this video. Stay tuned for the next one where I do maybe the rest of it, but I might have to do 2 more parts. It might be a 3-part. It might be 2 parts, but I'll try to get it all in one more video. But yeah, either way, stay tuned for the next video where I continue this story, and I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like on the video, and if you like my other videos, please do consider subscribing. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next video. Impulse 7 out, and peace.